Welcome back to Cocktails and Classics. This week we're trying something a little new. It's summertime. Our schedules are a little busier, so we're going to do a little shorter episode, a little shorter thing that we're watching. So we're going to try and, you know, the whole premise of the thing, like last week we said with Shawshank Redemption, was like Cameron had never seen Jurassic Park, and that like blew our minds. So we did Shawshank last week, the number one movie on IMDb. So now we're going to go through some of the top TV shows. We're going to start with Band of Brothers this week. We're going to start with episode one, and we're going to go through each episode and release them as we go. Um, because, like, personally, I don't watch that much television, and especially the ones that are at the top of this list, like anything from HBO. I never watched as a kid. We didn't have HBO. We weren't rich. Okay, calm down. But like, but now that like Max is out, and I have my own income, it's game on, baby. So we're gonna start with Band of Brothers this week, episode one. Ben, have you seen Band of Brothers at all?
So, I went to start this with my wife. Within the past couple years, we watched the first episode, and she was like, "Yeah, you can keep watching this without me." And then, when I went to start it, it was in like the first 10 minutes of episode two. So I had watched like the first episode, and I like maybe started the second one when she was like, "Yeah, I'm out." So, I just don't think I ever got back into it because yeah, realistically, I find that a lot of the TV I watch is like both of us trying to find something we can like kind of binge watch or, shoot. Yeah, I mean, we pretty much, not like we spend hours on end, but we just pick one show and then pretty much watch through it. We don't really like jump around,
Same.
and anymore. If it's something where I'm up later after she goes to sleep and I want to watch something, normally it's something shorter. I know at that point I don't have the attention span, so I try to find something that's like just a half hour that if I don't pay attention to, I'm not really upset. Or if I fall asleep on the couch while watching it, I'm also not upset. Um, I have fully accepted the whole dad thing, so I'm completely fine if I fall asleep watching TV on the couch now. So yeah, I had started it and never got the chance to kind of completely watch through it. So I'm considering this the first watch.
Hannah and I are the same way, where it's like we have to both like a show to do it. So it's I forget what it was. Fallout. We watched all of Fallout the other day because I just turned it on. She was in the room and she was kind of like, "This seems interesting. Let's keep going." I was like, "All right." And then there's a lot of stuff where we do that, or we like watch a lot of it, and then we just never finish it because like she doesn't like it, or I kind of like fall out of it, and so like that's kind of why I like movies. Is just it's like 2 hours. I can just commit to the 2 hours, and if it sucks, it's fine. I'm done with it. But like, and this will probably be good for me because it's like 10 hours. I can do that. But when you get to like Game of Thrones or something, and like I started Game of Thrones, made it through the first season, and everyone was like, "Oh, the first season sucks. You got to get into the second season and the third." I'm like, "Dude, you're getting to 20 and 30 hours, dog. I don't have
Yeah,
that time in my life to like."
it's kind of like with like Parks and Rec, where people are like, you just got to get through the first season. It's like, okay, the first season, whatever, I don't know, 12, 14 half-hour episodes. Like, yeah, that kind of sucks, but like, okay, fine. When someone's like, you just gotta wait till like season four, and also every episode's an hour for you to slog through, and oh, I know we said you just have to wait till it gets really interesting in like season four, but you still need to know everything and like understand what's happening season one through three. And at that point, no, that's not. Those are not the same thing.
I remember, I want to say my dad loved Band of Brothers when I was a kid. Like, we didn't have HBO, but I remember the DVDs. Like he had the DVDs of the entire series, and I want to say like the Pacific. He had like a couple of these war shows because he was like, he was in the military, so he was super into it.
So I saw the Pacific
But
in
you haven't seen Band of
college.
Brothers?
No, because someone who used to do this podcast with us was my my roommate in college and loved both Band of Brothers and the Pacific, but he had the Pacific on the DVD set.
Oh my
So
god.
shout out to Carlos. I have seen the Pacific before seeing Band of Brothers.
Band of Brothers is a 10-episode miniseries done by HBO. Came out in 2001. It's a drama history war episodic. It's the story of Easy Company of the U.S. Army 101 1st Airborne Division and their mission in World War II, Europe, from the Operation Overlord to VJ Day. Each episode's about like an hour. Currently sits at a 9.4 out of 10 on IMDb, making it the number 4 top-rated TV show. It was nominated for 3 Golden Globes, Best Miniseries or Movie Made for TV, which it won, and it was nominated for Best Performance by an Actor in a Miniseries, Damian Lewis, and nominated for Best Performance Supporting Actor, Ron Livingston. And then it was nominated for a massive amount of Primetime Emmys and won 6 of them. The top cast on IMDb for this series: Scott Grimes, Damian Lewis, Ron Livingston, Shane Taylor, Donnie Wahlberg, David Schwimmer was in there. A random Simon Pegg was in episode 1.
This cast was so nuts. Michael Fassbender's in it for like 2 seconds.
I'm kind of hoping it's not just like a bunch of like random cameos.
I don't honestly, I don't know, but I know and we talked about this before we started recording. There's so many people. There's so many. That, like, even once I finished the episode, I went back and like read through the episode description, and it was talking about like characters, and I'm like, wait, who was that guy? Wait a minute, hold on, who was that? And then when I looked him up, and I'm like, okay, I know who that was. But I'm just like, they talked about there was just so much going on. I could not follow with what was what was going on every freaking step of the way.
Yeah, like I feel like they didn't do an amazing job of introing people or kind of focusing on them. I mean, like obviously Ron Livingston and Damian Lewis's characters, Winters and Nixon, like those two are easily like focused on in this first episode the most. I mean, on IMDb, Malarkey is the number 1 guy, and I feel like the only thing I really remember is Schwimmer's character.
Chewing him out at the
Was
beginning.
it Sobel?
Sobel? Yeah.
Yeah, being like, like Malarkey is slang for shit, private shit, and like that's literally all I know about Malarkey. And apparently, he's the top billed character in the series. So maybe he comes up later. I feel like we're getting introduced to the guy who gets the letter from his wife.
I can't. Okay, this is the thing that gets me, because 2 of the characters look very familiar. Donnie Wahlberg's character, and who's the actor? He's in a lot of shit, and I can never remember his name. He played Al Capone on Boardwalk Empire. Stephen Graham. Yes, those 2 look very similar, and for the life of me, I constantly sit there and try to sometimes have to figure out who's who. Like, wait, which one was that guy? Wait, who is he?
I feel like Donnie Wahlberg looks a little different than he normally does, or at least that he does now in this series. Like he's a lot more like baby faced and like clean shaven, so he looks a little bit more like Stephen Graham.
Yeah, they look too similar. I don't like it. Yeah, I knew Damian Lewis and I knew Ron Livingston. Those 2 I knew. There were other ones that I knew were in it. You know, I knew Michael Fassbender was in it. I don't know how big of a role he plays. Michael Cudlitz, I knew. He's in a lot of stuff, but I knew he was in this show. And I knew, obviously, again, I can't remember how much of this I knew beforehand or how much I knew also due to the fact that I did watch the first episode. So I knew, like, Neil McDonough was in it and Schwimmer was there. But it's really crazy. You read through this, like, if you've never seen the show and you just want to be like, okay, there can't be that many people that, were in this show, just go to the IMDb page and look at it and just start clicking on actors' names and be like, oh shit, that guy? He was in that? Oh, okay. Or the people that you just like, I would have no idea who this is. Even we talked about Scott Grimes being the Malarkey. Scott Grimes is if you've ever watched like American Dad, he's the voice of Steve, the son. That's where I saw the name and I'm like, wait, the guy who voices Steve on American Dad, that guy's in this show? I was like, huh, I'll be damned, he is. No idea. never put it together. But it's just one of those things where like you just could click through names and everyone that's on this show, you could probably look at something and be like, "Oh, that's the guy from." It's also interesting to look at the overlap between like what other shows these guys have done. Uh like I've looked through a lot of the IMDb stuff. A lot of them later went on to do like Justified, which makes me wonder like if there's some sort of connection there with the showrunners maybe that worked on this show or the casting director. Um like I did notice that was one that like kept recurring and popping up with a lot of these guys in IMDb. So I guess I'm sure there's probably some sort of connection. I just don't know what that is, but
I knew Damian Lewis was in this, but I did not know Ron Livingston was in it. So like when he pops up, I was kind of like, oh shit. uh, and then I want to say just like this, you know how like when you see something and you don't necessarily like pay attention to it, you just kind of like absorb this information. I feel like I knew David Schwimmer was in this, but he was another one where it was like when he came in, I was like, wait, that's David Schwimmer being a dick. Wow, what's new?
oh, he plays such an asshole. Just
I don't know. Like his character is so interesting to me. I mean, so the series is based on like a true story. It's based off the book, and they start with like interviews with guys from the company on like why they did it and more little information, and then we get into like the drama fictionalized like actual show part of it after the intro. But yeah, like his character is so interesting to me that he was like this total like hard ass, created this like amazing like group of soldiers for Easy Company, and then just like sucked when he got onto the, like the battlefield. And then like I mean, it seems like everyone's loyalty wasn't quite there to Sobel anyways, because like he was really an asshole to them. Like the one where he gets the part where he gets Winters the promotion, and he's like, "Oh, you're gonna be on kitchen duty. Make them something nice because they're gonna have the day off." And like, I like spaghetti. Gets them to all eat spaghetti, and then immediately makes them go run up the hill and
yeah,
puke and everything. Like, come on, dude.
yeah. He just comes across everything he does is just to be a dick and to make himself look good. Like that's literally
Yeah,
even when he goes to Winners and he's like, "This needs to be the best, most disciplined, company." And he's like, "Okay." And he's like, "So you need to find 6 guys and get them on the, I need
like
6 guys.
reprimand them.
I need their reprimand and I need what their recommended punishment's going to be." And he's like, "What am I reprimanding them for? Find something." It's like, what a
Well, even
douche.
like, yeah, it's like when Winters gets the promotion, he's like digging through everybody's shit and be like, contraband, contraband. What's this? He stole something from the mess hall. We want to cut him. And it's like, come on, dude. You kind of get just desserts when everyone is like, I'm not going to follow this guy into the battlefield. Like, you're going to have to like remove this dude if we're going to move forward. And I mean, he gets sent to go, what is he, like training people who aren't fit for the infantry to go jump? It's like
Yeah,
doctors and
he's
dentists and
basically
stuff.
training like the chaplains.
Yeah.
Yeah, basically like the people who are going to be running like the mash units. They need to know how to jump out of in case they need to know how to jump out of airplanes. Which, like, is as shitty as that sounds to him, like, in the moment, you just know, like, years later, he's just like, wow, man, I'm super glad I didn't actually have to go to the war. Like,
Yeah,
oh, what'd you?
like
Or he's one of those, like, boomers who's like, I was in the army during the war, and I was part of the first airborne, yada yada yada, and then it's actually like, yeah, no, I trained all those guys, and then I did so good that they they I then had to run the school to train everyone. I didn't get to, I trained everyone, but I didn't get to go into combat. One of those who's like trying to brag about his service, but also trying to brag that he was so good that that's why he didn't serve, or like why he wasn't actually in combat. Like, oh God.
so I did enjoy. I mean, it's kind of all tailored to the same because that's kind of like the big plot point, though. Is like when Sobel tries to punish Winters for not passing off latrine duty, even though he had because he had something else he was doing and he didn't receive the phone because the place he was staying doesn't have a phone. He didn't receive a messenger because the messenger didn't find him, and then it was still, I guess, Winter's fault that the latrines weren't checked or whatever. So uh, Sobel is like, oh, you can take this punishment of what is it, like 40 days of not having your time
48.
off.
I think it was 60 days of no. Basically, like 60 days without 48-hour leave. So, like, basically, like 2 months of no weekends.
Yeah, and then it was either that or like go to a court martial.
Yeah, or like you would have your weekends, but you couldn't leave base, basically. So it was just like no without leave.
Yeah, and then Sobel's like, just take the punishment. You don't leave base anyways. And then he's like, I signed the court martial paper for you, so I'll see you there, buddy.
Yeah. Well, yeah, because the whole thing of it was that he was just doing that because he made him look bad by
Because
getting
he
to
beat
the
him. Yeah, he
yeah
beat
he
him
beat
to
him
the
to the place.
rendezvous point. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, just because you suck at your job. And it was also, I'm sure, the punishment due to the fact of like it was one of Winter's men who is the one who called out as the major to fuck with him. Yeah, was the other reason that he was being punished, even though he had no like proof of it. Yeah, I loved when he was just like, "Here you go. What's this? I signed it. I'll see you in the court martial." Oh,
And then yeah, when everyone's like gonna turn in their pens to back him basically and be like, I'm not gonna go die for Sobel. It was kind of interesting the way they tell the story almost like the episode starts and it's like, oh, we're not gonna be able to go jump for this mission, and then they're like watching the film and then flashes back to tell the story of like basic training and like airborne school basically. And it's interesting that they did that. And like, I kind of get why. I guess like we don't know anyone. I still feel like I don't really know anyone to give us the backstory and like lead up to because the jump that they had to miss the very beginning we learn is D-Day. So like we're leading up to this part. Dog episode 2 is gonna be absolutely nuts, right? Like that's gonna be D-Day. Like shit's gonna hit the fan, right? So it was interesting to me that it was kind of like haha tease and then let's go back and like see the backstory and then lead up to what is ultimately going to be this like large tipping off point basically. I want to say it's not a pilot episode obviously because it seems like this was all planned out. We had all 10 episodes figured out because
yeah, they didn't go to Steven Spielberg and Tom Hanks and be like, "Hey, can you guys give us a pilot for this thing you want to do?" No, it was definitely like just the part 1, but I will say that, and again, it's one of those things I know we talked about that there's a lot of people and like just a lot going on in the first episode. I have a feeling, just based off of what I remember from the Pacific, that I'm sure it will kind of start to focus on the other, like it'll kind of dive more into each of the each of the characters kind of throughout the series, that you kind of get to know
Probably. I also expect
more about them and get like a better understanding for the characters, assuming that they're there every episode. I don't know.
I'm
I'm
expecting we
sure
got
it's
introduced to a
war.
couple people who are going to pass away in the next couple episodes and kind of
Yeah.
be, characters who just kind of get sacrificed for the story slash like emotional points. I mean, it's real life, it's war, but it'll be interesting to see what happens. There wasn't anything that like necessarily stood out to me the whole episode. There was one shot that kind of like really blew me away, and it's the one like as they're getting ready to go jump. I don't know if it's the day that gets abandoned or the day where they're actually getting on the plane, but there's this shot where they all have the face paint like blackout on their face, and it's just these like static close up shots where they're staring almost right down the lens, and it looks like those old, like it feels like it looks like those old World War II photos where you see the whole platoon kind of getting ready to go like to battle or just like hanging out, and it's like those still photos where you would be in a documentary and somebody has like almost like a Ken Burns kind of like effect across the to like single out each shoulder. It was very interesting and very like super emotional, I feel like, even though nothing like it was just close-ups of people's faces staring. Like I don't know, it was a very moving shot to me. I don't know.
No, I get that. I'd agree. Yeah, I think overall, I mean, again, is someone I don't know. I love. Again, I've accepted the fact that I'm just a dad now. But even like back in high school, like loved Saving Private Ryan. Such like one of my favorite movies. I don't care that it's like 3 hours long. I will watch that movie anytime. So I definitely do see the relation for sure between the two. Yeah, I think there's a lot of things in this movie that just are they're very well shot and well done. A lot of like the landing, when they land and they're going through, even like the when they're cutting the fence. But I love this, where they're shooting down the street in Britain, and the old man on the bicycle,
Yeah.
and you just kind of see the shot of this open field, and then of course like you kind of follow him as he makes his turn, and then there's guys running across the street, and he's like, "Oh, are you fucking kidding me?" So he turns his bike around to go the other way, goes to turn, guys run across the street, turns his bike around, goes the other way, guys running across the street, and he's like, Jesus Christ. Finally, when Winters comes out, he's like, well, you caught me. Just like just so well done. But even just like the scenic shots of them, out in the fields, and that, just such a good, like, just, I don't know. I think the cinematography in that is just very much, I don't know how to put it. Like, it definitely brings you into the world. Like, I feel like it does really kind of suck you into the feeling that they're in Britain in the 40s. I liked the use of almost like the film grain that they put over a lot of it to make it feel like it was like actual like old film footage. I thought that was a really cool concept for them to do. I liked that it wasn't always like super noticeable, but uh, in the scenes where like it would be like kind of like shots of someone's face for a long time, it got to be noticeable of like the film grain and the things kind of
This is probably
running
shot
over.
on film. Yeah, it is.
I mean, that makes sense, but I just don't know if they did it like as an added effect of it,
Oh,
or
they might
it
have.
felt like
Um,
they added like the effect to make it look more dated.
the visual effects hold up really well, though. I will say a lot of the like backgrounds and like locations, like expanding locations, looks really good. Um, I was kind of impressed because you watch some stuff with visual effects or back like painted back, not bit painted, but like CG backgrounds, and it's kind of like, I mean, it probably helps that it was Spielberg and Tom Hanks and like HBO money, so like I wonder if they had a blank check.
Yeah, I think it's the fact that they literally had just such a huge budget. I don't know. I would be curious to know what their like what that conversation was. I would imagine, yeah. I can't imagine HBO like wants to do this, and then when they come to them, they're like, well, hold up, wait a minute, we can't do that. You guys gotta reel it in a little bit.
And since this is the pilot, we're just kind of, or not the pilot, but part one, we're just kind of like, there's not much. It's a lot of setup, meeting characters, giving this backstory. So we're gonna like kind of prompt these questions and see where we go with these. But so first, does the first episode hook you in to continue watching? And what questions do you have after watching the pilot? Are you excited to see the rest of the series and where we're going from there?
I can put it to you. I can answer the question of, am I hooked in after the pilot? I very much had to consciously be aware to make sure I stopped episode 2, and I just have the feeling it's going to be very difficult to treat this like a like how TV used to be, where you have
Watch
to
it
wait
each week.
like, oh, you have to wait to watch it, or at least wait till after we record on that episode. So
Yeah.
I don't want to come into the recordings with the concept of like, oh well, I already know, oh, we're gonna talk about this, but oh, Dylan doesn't know this is gonna happen. So like, I have to be very cognizant of like, nope, I have to wait. I have to wait to watch it. Um, because yeah, I was ready to just like, I'm ready to binge it. Like I'm ready to go. Um, I think there's a lot. Again, it's crazy to me. A lot happened in this episode, and yet I feel like there's still like so much that I don't know, or I mean, one, the episode ended before we even got into D-Day, so I know that's going to be a very interesting kind of thing to see what goes on with them kind of landing
Well, and they're
in
getting there
Normandy.
the day before, according to the date. But it also looks like they're
Yes.
going at night, obviously. But like, so they're
Yes.
landing
So
like
they
overnight, night before, kind of to land, because they're going further into enemy
yeah.
territory to come back towards the beach. So
Mhm. Yeah, they're going further into the city and then coming back towards the beach to kind of two prong
flank
attack the beach there.
flank the beachhead.
Yes, I'm also, like I said, very much more interested to see and learn more about each character. Like I said, we got kind of glimpses, into each character, uh, but we didn't really get a ton out of each guy. Like I said, I'm a huge fan of Michael Cudlitz as an actor. All we really saw was him running, and then him saying that he thinks Sobel hates them, which is fine because he hates Sobel. But like that's the only like two things we got out of him. I'm curious to know, what I just want to see more of what these characters end up doing, I guess. Even though I don't know, I have a hard time telling them apart. I want to know kind of what they will end up doing that's going to be like, "Oh yeah, that's him. That's got to be this guy." Cuz like I said, right now they're just kind of like, "Oh, hey, here's that actor." But he looks, "Oh, hey, look. It's Stephen Graham. Oh wait, nope, hold on, not Stephen Graham. Hold on, wait. Nope, that's Donnie Wahlberg. Hold on, okay. So like getting to the point where they're each doing something enough where I'm like, okay, I'm not calling them out by actor name but by character name. I want to get to that point.
I'm not hooked in the sense of like damn, like that was an amazing first episode. Like this perfectly encapsulates like what this is going to be. I'm hooked in the sense of like it was a perfect cliffhanger and like lead up to like you could just go straight to episode 2 if you wanted. Like it's a great, and I love when series do this. Like something happens right at the end where it's like beat, and then it's like it'll start right where episode 2 is, or like it leads you to a cliffhanger where it's like, hey, start the next one, buddy. Um, so like I'm
Which is so interesting that it's something that they did. Like, obviously, they knew, VHS, DVD was something that would happen. But, like, they had no idea the concept of streaming in 2001. But this show is, like, perfect for streaming.
yes, I agree. Which I mean, maybe that was just like maybe that was a concept of like, hey, once this ends this week, like people are gonna want to come back because they want to see what happens. Like we've teased this enough to where it draws them back. Like that's setting the bait for you to come back. But it's also at the same time a perfect idea for streaming where it's like it ends right into the next thing. Um, what I'm most excited for, I think, will be obviously the big events like D-Day. Um, I'm excited, like you said, to get more details and introduced into these characters more. Find out like where it's the band of brothers. Like I want to see how we become brothers. Like I think they're a strong knit group on this like ideal of easy company and everything. But I want to see them like the camaraderie come together and like that they're fighting side by side. Um, I'm intrigued to see. I'm intrigued to see who makes it. I feel like we couldn't quite figure out who it was because there's so many characters. But the guy who gets the letter about the other guy's brother dying, and then he gets it in his jacket or whatever. Like I feel like they're setting up something there to where like one of those guys isn't gonna make it. So I don't know. I'm not looking forward to that because it's always sad. Like even though I don't know this guy at all, I have no like ties. Like I don't know. I get emotional in war movies because I'm like, fuck, war sucks, dude.
Well, it's just one of those things of, like, the reminder, right? Of, like, oh, this guy's brother went to the war or went to Italy, and now it's just like, yep, that's it. Not coming back. Won't see him again. Like, he's just like, yeah, I just feel, I feel bad for my mom. And it's just like, damn, that's a real gut punch. Like, for him to just be as upfront about it is like, yeah, I feel bad. Like, just not really for me, but for my mom's side of things, and just being like, shit, like that. For him to have such a like concept of that. And the other thing too is the fact that I always, it's one of those things it's hard to put yourself in the mindset of, but like most of those guys are like 18 or 19, and realistically probably more than one of them is under 18 and just lied to join up. So like these guys and like the concept of like death, I'm sure at that point, like at that age, to then like at 18, at no point was I ever really faced with my own mortality in the way that these guys are and will be.
Even just like Ron Livingston and Damian Lewis's characters at one point say something along the lines of like, "We should have been born earlier" or something, or "We should have been born later," like to avoid all of this. Basically, like
Yeah.
it's yeah. I mean, it's crazy. I mean, I can fathom it because like the world is the way it is right now, like how we get to this point. But like, it's a crazy concept that the entire world was at war, basically, like
Yeah.
twice. we didn't get enough of it the first time.
Nope, we didn't learn.
How was the casting? We talked a little bit about it, but are we love the character choices so far? I know we didn't get too much of each one. Um, is there anyone that's relatable or hateable? Obviously, I feel like the hateable one is Sobel, which I also feel like is a
Yeah,
great choice. I feel like Schwimmer did a good job at being this hateable character. I feel like he's not what I picture. What I mean, granted, this is World War II. Like some of these people were drafted, some of these people were already in the military, but like he's not what I picture when I think of like hard ass military.
military.
But like he does such a
Yeah,
good
you
job.
think more like Arlie Ermy, like
Yeah,
screaming. He reminds me a lot of like a and most people probably seen this. Most of the people who listen to this probably aren't old enough to have watched it or as into watching it as I am. Um, he reminds me so much of like Frank Burns from MASH, where like he's just like this weaselly little like I'm going to make this the best military unit possible, and I'm going to be this great war person, and people are. He just reminds me of like I'm gonna I want everyone to know who I am and everyone to understand how great I am. And in order to do that, I'm going to be a weaselly little shit to everybody. And I'm going to be this, like, everything has to be military by the book. And if it's not, then I'm going to, and the only real difference, I think, between those two characters is the fact that Goebel is in more of a position of power over the other. The other characters in this show, whereas in MASH, like Frank really didn't have much authority, and what authority he did have, the people didn't really care. There wasn't as much repercussions. But yeah, the thing of like, oh, so and so, you beat me to the landing point, and these guys made a fool out of me, and now I got in trouble. So I'm gonna court martial you for something that, in all likelihood, when he was like, I rang you. He's like, I am staying with a family that doesn't have a phone. Well, I sent a messenger. I never got any sort of message of basically just being like, yeah, you're full of shit, and I can kind of prove this, but that's 100% something that would have happened. Of just like, hey, uh, I didn't get my way, so I'm gonna throw a tantrum to the most extreme.
yeah,
But also, he went back to do 3 more years of Friends after this. Like, he was still on like the most popular TV show at the time, and then came over to do, which I've got to imagine like probably a fun thing to do, but also surprising that he was able to. I guess for one episode, not that shocking, but I mean, you look at it now, and unless they're off to do like a movie or something, it's rare you find people who are doing like a lead in a TV show that's like the most popular show to also be doing a ton of other stuff is just not.
yeah. Well, Friends might have also only been 6 months out of the year or something to film or
And I'm sure that's probably what it was. Again, to find time to do, it's not like he was the lead on a second show. He was in, I'm assuming one episode. I can't imagine the folks at HBO were like, you know what we really need? We really need more of the episodes to focus on the guy teaching priests and doctors how to jump out of airplanes.
I think Damian Lewis is a great casting. I'm excited to see how Winters develops as a character. Ron Livingston, I think he's good. I and maybe this is just my perception of Ron Livingston, but I also just feel like he's kind of like a little too smug, like not serious enough. I don't know, like And maybe that's just the
He's got
character.
this interesting laissez-faire charm
Yes.
that just seems kind of out of place.
Yeah, which I mean, maybe that's the thing because like he's walking around with the flask, handing it out to people, and he's like, "Oh, I snuck 99 bottles into your Foot Locker and all this stuff," and it's like, you're going to war, dude. Like, I mean, I guess I don't know. Maybe it's a little of gallows humor type vibe to him. Yeah, I'm interested to see more so. I feel like than Winters. I'm more interested to see how Nixon, uh, like becomes and like develops as a character.
Changes or like
Yeah,
develop. Yeah,
especially like faced with the situation at hand. Like, does he become more of a serious person?
callous.
Yeah, like
Yeah. The other one I'm curious to see is Neil McDonough's character, who we're really only kind of briefly introduced to. But Winters is kind of like, you've been here 6 days, and they like, you're gambling with the men, this, that, and the other thing. And I'm just like, I feel like that's foreshadowing something coming where, like, he's going to finally have to be put in a position to do something that the people aren't going to like. And he's going to have to learn how to accept being the bad guy. And I'm just curious to see how that's going to play.
that really makes you like respect Winters even more, though, because I mean the guys all loved him at that one point, but like when he's talking to that other officer and he's like, "Don't ever be in a position where you can take something from these guys," like like that was such a good moment where it's like he understands these guys, like he obviously that's part of this band of brothers camaraderie thing is like he's you are the officer, but I feel like he's also trying to be like you're not quite one of the guys, but you also share that like respect with them of hey, it's we're on equal footing, but like
Yeah, I think he understands that there's going to be times where he has to be the bad guy, and he wants to make sure he's in a position where when that happens, it's not going to like destroy the relationship as much as it would if it's like, wait a minute, what? You're our friend. You can't tell us how to do. You know, I think they kind of have alluded to that too with the one character when they're like, "Oh, are you gonna tell me what to do?" And he's like, yeah, I'm your sergeant." And then he like points to the thing, and he's like, "Oh shit, congratulations!" It's like one of those where it's like, yeah, you just kind of gotta watch what you say because you never know when now you're gonna be talking to a superior. No, like I said, this is gonna be a tough. It's gonna be a tough thing to not binge. Going back to kind of the days of having to wait to watch the next episode of something. Oh man, I have not done that in a long time. Well, I shouldn't say that. There was a brief time in like I say it now as I'm about to say it makes it sound like so long ago cuz this had to have been like 2016, 2017 maybe. Maybe it was later than that. I can't remember how long I lived in my apartment before we bought the house. But at the time, my wife and I were watching like I can't remember what shows we were watching like on the CW. So like we'd have nights where like oh we're watching like this show, or this show, and then it was like Wednesday or Thursday. By that point, the CW app had uploaded all of the episodes we'd want to watch throughout the week. So it was like that was like the night that we watched like the current television shows, and the other nights were just like streaming nights. But man, yeah, it's just such a weird feeling to be like, oh, I have to wait. I have to wait a week to figure out what's gonna be the next thing, or what's gonna happen. Like, I don't like that. I want my instant gratification.
it is even now. I feel like if that choice is taken away from you, it's hard to do because like um I feel like there was something I was trying to. Oh, Showtime is still kind of like that. And HBO is too sometimes if it's not a Max original. But like, The Curse. I was gonna watch all of The Curse, the Emma Stone or Emily Stone, I guess now she wants to be called. The Emily Stone and Nathan Fielder show with Benny Safdie, where it's like they're like doing like an HGTV show, and then they get like cursed. It's like super fucking cringy and stuff. But I was gonna go through and watch all of that, but it hadn't been up yet. It was like only episode like 3 or 4, and so I was like, shit, I have to wait to finish this thing. Like, uh, it's kind of rough. Even like Stranger Things, the last season of Stranger Things, where they did like part 1 of season 4 and part 2 of season 4, and you're just like, fuck, I don't want to wait. I don't want to wait. Give it to me now.
Yeah, you get to that. You get to that point where you're like, should I watch it and then like wait, or should I just try to wait until everything's out so I know I can get through everything at one time?
Even if I'm not gonna sit and watch it all in one night. Like I like Fallout. It was all out, but I was watched it like once, one night, the next night, 3 weeks. I watched the next one. Like it's having the ability to watch it all back to back to back is the thing that I feel like you want. Do you have a rating for this?
I figured I'd kind of give a rating towards the end. I feel like it's like trying to rate a movie after watching the first 15 minutes,
Yeah.
right? Like we're still super early on. Maybe what I'll do, I'm thinking maybe at the end, I guess my guess is like I want to go through the end, give an overall score, and then maybe go back and like rank where I thought or what episodes maybe I thought were the best or the
Okay.
worst.
Yeah, we could do that.
Because I feel like it's very hard to just like this is a this is a 7 out of 10. It's like there's again, and it's both a positive and a negative. Knowing that I'm gonna keep watching it anyways, like it's good that I'm looking forward to try to learn more about some of the characters, but like for other people I could also understand where they're like there's too much going on. I can't follow this and then maybe like stopped after this episode. I would also kind of have the understanding of why that would be the case.
It was kind of like our talk on Dune, where it's like there's so many characters to follow. Like, just give me my. And this episode kind of did pretty good at it. Like, they gave us our 3 or 4 characters that we needed to worry about. Like, the main focus
Yeah.
was on Nixon, Winters, Sobel, and then
And
maybe
then towards the end you got a little bit more towards like Bill and John were the two guys. Yeah. Right before they're about to take off where it's like the whole coat
yeah,
switch incident. Yeah, I think again, knowing what I know about like the Pacific, I think the Pacific there was only like 4 guys that it focused on throughout the like entirety of the show. So I'm sure this one will be a little bit different in that regard, but still, yeah, I do like the fact that I have the feeling that it's going to be one of those things where we're going to kind of dive into each person a little bit more as we go.
so if you're listening and you want to watch along with us, we're gonna try and do it weekly. That may not happen, but
It might just be you might get some episodes later in a week. I'm sorry. I travel for work, so sometimes I'm gone up until like a Friday. So the hope is with doing a TV show, we can be a little bit more consistent because it's not as difficult to find an hour as it is sometimes to find 2 or 3.
but you could watch along with us. It's on Max, HBO Max. You could binge through and then just listen to these episodes after the fact.
Or you could wait. You could wait till we get through the entire series and then binge listen to the podcast. It's up to you. The possibilities are endless.
Feel free to go over to our Instagram at Cocktails and Classics Pod and share your experiences with Band of Brothers. Is this something that you've watched a long time ago and you're a huge fan of, or you watched more recently and you're in love with, or you hated it? You did not like Band of Brothers, and it's something that you loathe. Let us know. Once again, watch along with us and send in your feedback. Like, is there something we fucked up with? Are we calling Bill and John the wrong characters? Is Sobel misunderstood? Is he not actually as bad as we thought? Let us know over there on our Instagram. You can DM us, or we'll have a post for this, and you can leave some feedback and comments there. Um, and check us out as we do episode 2 next time. And as always, watch responsibly.